All right, good morning, everyone. It's getting a little bit quiet in the room, so I think that's a good sign. Folks are settling into their seats. And if you do have some conversations, please move them out to the hallway. Thank you. My name is Joe Cimino. I'm the administrator for New Jersey, the current chair. And we are going to convene the business session in which it's that time, everyone. It's that time. I don't know that I'm ready for it. I feel like the protagonist of a great literary classic, The Monster at the End of This Book. And unfortunately, I am furry, lovable little Grover, wondering why you keep turning the pages. Because at the end of this agenda, I have to turn over my chairmanship. And I don't know that I'm ready for that, but I'm going to be looking to you for some advice on how to handle that.
Leave with speed and grace. That's all I can say is relish the past and enjoy the fact that you can sit here like I'm sitting here and not fret about some of the details. So, but you'll be obligated for some things for a couple of years yet. So it's not completely cutting the umbilical cord, but you can handle it.
Yes, and as I mentioned, we've always leaned on you through these years. I very much appreciated my time. I think that really does, that is the vice chairmanship is a big part of leadership. And I've always appreciated how much you leaned on me, and I lean on Dan without question. So with that, let's get started on the business session today. So I'm gonna call us to order, ask if there is any additions or changes to the agenda for this business session. Not seeing any, we will consider the agenda approved by consent. And then the approval of the proceedings from the May 2025 meeting. Were there any concerns or edits to what was? No, not seeing any on the proceedings of the May 2025 meeting, so we'll consider that approved by consent as well. And so this truly is one of my favorite items is the 2026 action plan. I very much appreciate how much work that staff puts into this, and then of course all the things that we say we're going to do. So I will turn that over to, I believe, Bob. Yep, just to get us started.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I'm saying that for the last time, I'm not sure. But the action plan, draft action plan is included in the briefing materials for this session. There's, staff has pulled this together and talking with board chairs and committee chairs and amongst ourselves and looking at sort of what requirements are in the FMPs and across all the other species and stock assessments and data and habitat and law enforcement, all the other sections. And what we'll do is we'll have the staff person that's sort of the lead for that subject matter introduce that section. And this is your chance to add or subtract or change the work priorities for next year. So if you have something in mind that you don't see in here, please raise your hand and let us know. Or if you think there's something in here that is not a high priority and not worth the effort that it may take to accomplish it, that's fair game too. So with that, I'll ask Tony to do goal number 1, which is fishery management. And Tony, do you want to go through the high priorities, then stop for questions, and then we'll go to the medium and low after that? That works for everybody. So take it away, Tony. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note that there is the possibility of actions taking place later this week that we would add to the document, but I don't want to make any judgments about what may or may not happen at a board meeting later this week. So we have not added those actions to the action plan yet and would do so later. Bob.
Yeah, just one real quick comment. Sort of the convention of this document is anything that's in bold is a new project, and anything that's not bolded is essentially a rollover or a carryover from next year. It's not that that work didn't get done necessarily, but it's some of these projects are ongoing year after year. So you know, focusing on the bold is a good way to focus on the new projects for next year. Sorry, Tony.
No worries, thank you. So starting off with our high priority species, as we said before, and this is not about something being more important than other species, but just the workload that will go into the items in the action plan. So for American lobster, the board did not take any management action in response to the stock assessment. So unless something happens in February, that action would go away, but we will bring to the board exploring a management strategy evaluation to identify any possible management objectives and approaches for the Gulf of Maine and Georges Bank lobster stock that would be contingent on the board approval as well as finding funding to do so. We also will explore facilitating a meeting between the ASMSC's Lobster Technical Committee as what with Canada DFO lobster scientists to advance lobster stock assessment scientists across the border. For Atlantic Menhaden, there's the potential to initiate management action in response to the ecological reference points benchmark stock assessment and peer review and single species stock assessment update if necessary. For Atlantic striped bass, would be conducting the 2027 benchmark stock assessment and working with the states to implement new management measures to support stock rebuilding if those are approved through Addendum 3 later this week, as well working with a contractor on the development of the Atlantic striped bass recreational demand model, which is ongoing right now. And that's similar to what we have been, the recreational demand model that we have for summer flounder, scup, and black sea bass. Then moving down cobia, where we'll set the 2027 specifications and consider changes to recreational measures if that's necessary, as well as starting to initiate the stock assessment that would be presented to the board in 2027. And then for horseshoe crab, we are in the process of conducting the stakeholder engagement process to identify possible changes to the utility reward harvest policy functions of the ARM framework to better align with stakeholder values and consider those recommendations, and evaluate state spawning surveys to identify changes or improvements to allow further use in stock assessments. For red drum, we'll work with the states to implement any measures that get approved via Addendum 2, and also we'll continue to conduct the traffic light analysis and respond if necessary. For Tautog, the board did initiate an addendum to respond to the stock assessment, so we will do that work. And I can take questions.
Thank you, Tony. Questions for Tony? Oh, Jason McNamee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Tautog, I wondered if we wanted to add. We talked about the trying to implement the risk policy on that one, so I think that might be a good one to add there. And so we talked about it with Tautog, and then maybe there's a general one, so I'll wait for that section unless you think this covers kind of the specific and then the general topic of kind of continuing to work on the risk policy.
Yeah, Tony, I mean, I have a question on that as well. So is there a standing risk policy? Jay, you probably know this too, a standing risk policy group, or do we need to form a group? So that's an additional question.
We don't have necessarily a standing risk policy group. We have worked on the risk policy with the Tautog TC in the past, and then we've had a couple people come in and help out with explaining how that policy works. But Katie, if you want to add anything, please do so.
Well, great. This answer is probably not going to be worth all of that effort, but we do have we had a risk policy work group that was formed to do the initial route, and it has been essentially working through the ASC at this point. So we do plan to bring the risk policy back to the ASC to work on some issues identified during Red Drum, and we can, I think, continue to move the Tautog part of that forward as well through the ASC.
Yeah, that's one of our least recognized, but to me, most appreciated groups. So I think that's great and always worth it. Katie, thank you. Oh, I see Adam Nowalski.
Thank you. At the last Mid-Atlantic Council meeting, they had discussion about their role of their monitoring committees, which led to a motion to add to their draft implementation plan the consideration of development of a omnibus framework to adjust their ACL specifications process in 2026. I am wondering if a complementary possible action or bullet would be appropriate here at the commission level, since those were developed jointly. And should the council decide to move forward with them, I would think we, as the Summer Flounder, Scup and Black Sea Bass Board, Bluefish Board, would probably need to respond accordingly.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. You know, that I think that's one of the, despite the joint management, what the councils are required to deal with Magnuson and what we deal with are a little bit different. So this is obviously something that the councils need to or want to address at this point. And yeah, we certainly need to, since we're trying to be in lockstep, I'll turn it over to Tony to see like what our role is in all of that.
Adam, I think what we can do is add a bullet similar to what we see under Dogfish and to monitor the council's activities on this and then respond if necessary. I think it depends on what the action is what action gets taken and whether or not we need to do it or not through a joint FMP or if it would just be a FMP by the council. And that's also something that the board can discuss with the Mid-Atlantic when we meet in December. I assume that we'll get an update on that. This is where the tricky parts happen when the bodies take action when the other body is not there.
Follow up, Adam.
Note monitor is great, and I've certainly learned that as long as we've got some placeholder for it somewhere, if we do have to take action, it makes it a whole lot easier to lift for us. Thank you.
And the last time I get to make the joke that I will confer with the chairman of the Mid-Atlantic Council to make sure that that happens in lockstep. So, next item. We will, I'm told that we have a member of the public that has their hand up. So sorry, not seeing that, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question about the recreational demand model for striped bass and sort of the context in which that's being planned to use in the striped bass fishery. You know, for summer flounder, scup, black sea bass, we're using it to estimate expected catch in the following year based on kind of angler choice. And so I'm just curious about sort of the intent of use of the recreational demand model for striped bass, because as you know, we don't set specs every year like we do for the Mid-Atlantic species on striped bass. So just curious if you had a little bit more context for how the recreational demand model would be used on stripers. Thanks.
Mike, we haven't fully discussed that aspect yet, so we're just working on the development of the model, and then we'll get there. So I can try to follow up with you later, but I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Oh, just a quick follow-up. Is there going to be a like an angler choice survey?
It's already ongoing.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have pulled this up. Next up is.
Okay, we'll move on to our medium-low priority species. For Atlantic sturgeon, we will continue to monitor the state and federal responses to the pending biological opinion and respond if necessary. For black drum and the other cyanid species, I won't repeat later on, but we'll consider the recommendations from the plan review team on the de minimis status criteria, and then respond if necessary. For coastal sharks, HMS has draft amendment 16, which is the commercial and recreational shark fishery management measures, and proposed rule for electronic reporting that should be coming out, and we'll monitor that and see if we need to respond. And then as well as have a presentation on the bull and sandbar shark stock assessments and respond if necessary. For Spanish mackerel, we'll monitor the council's development of the federal amendment to address catch level recommendations from the most recent stock assessment and several management topics that have been raised through the council port meeting process. For spiny dogfish, the Mid-Atlantic Council and the New England Fishery Management Council have activities that are looking at accountability measures and specification setting modifications. Depending on what those final actions are, the commission would respond if necessary. For spot, we'll initiate the 2027 benchmark stock assessment. And for weak fish, we'll initiate the 2028 benchmark stock assessment. And I will pause there before getting into the cross-cutting issues.
Thank you, Tony. Questions for Tony on the low priority issues? Not seeing anything, so I think we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For cross-cutting issues, we will monitor and assess the impact to commission FMPs and stock assessment from changes to the MRIP fishing effort survey, including the recalibration results, as well as monitor the activities of the regional councils on the executive order for seafood competitiveness. We'll also facilitate the declared interest and voting privileges work group discussions and incorporate any recommendations into the commission guiding documents as approved by the ISFMP Policy Board. We'll address challenges of sharing the tracking data for the lobster and Jonah crab fishery across different jurisdictions, as well as organize an opportunity for the states to present and discuss efforts on the northern right whale monitoring and research.
Okay, any questions on that for Tony? Not seeing any.
For goal 2, Pat Canfield will run us through the science and stock assessment activities. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, thank you. Goal 2 starts off with assessment science committee activities, notably to seek refinements to our retrospective patterns guidance document. That's something the committee developed a couple years ago. We've now applied it to both the Tautog and Menhaden assessments, and that called for a revisit and some refinements. So the committee will work on that next year. Moving down again on the risk and uncertainty tool, we're going to change that a little bit and use it on a data poor species. And I think we had some discussions earlier this week for maybe using it for Tautog or trying it out again. Under the data collection activities, notably the CMAP and NEMAP programs, consider expanding the range of the trap video survey further north up the coast to sample potentially shifting stocks. Also, build standardized survey data delivery tools to expedite the use of those data in stock assessments. Quite a bit of environmental data are collected during the CMAP surveys, so we want to do a thorough evaluation of not only what is collected, but identify opportunities to use those data more fully in assessments and research publications. Shifting into the NEMAP activities, continue to participate on the Northeast Trawl Advisory Panel to implement plans for wind energy area survey mitigation, and also collaborate with partner surveys to modernize from paper to digital data collection out on the survey vessels. That should speed up data delivery to the stock assessments. And then moving down to the next page, partner with the NIMS Northeast Fisheries Science Center Cooperative Research Branch to pilot an industry-based survey to supplement current surveys. That's something the commission has been involved with for a couple of years, and we're going to flip the switch to implement that on the water. Work with the councils to characterize deficiencies in NIMS scientific support and associated impacts on the fisheries. And this is a continuation of projects funded through the IRA support to the councils. And then finally in that section, monitor progress in commercial landings, port and observer sampling information exchanges between state and federal partners. That sampling has declined in the last 5 years. And so we recently had a workshop coordinated by the Northeast Center, and we'll continue those discussions to try to get as many samples as possible in 2026. Under broader fisheries research, assist both the Northeast and Southeast Science Centers in identifying opportunities for commission and state support from sample collection to lab analysis and stock assessment modeling. Under the broad bullet and category of collaborating with university researchers, we hope to bring in some fresh information on weak fish mortality estimates from dolphins and use that in the weak fish assessment model. And contingent upon board approval of the lobster board, revisit the need for a management strategy evaluation. And then finally, under ecosystem-based management and changing ocean conditions, expand the incorporation of environmental data and analysis into our stock assessment workflows to better inform stock recruitment and population productivity dynamics. And that's more of a meat potatoes work where we have a lot of fisheries data providers, survey data providers, but we haven't worked closely with the environmental data providers. And so to try to get those experts onto some of our stock assessment teams and use that information more in the assessments. And then lastly, in competing ocean uses, an MOU has been signed between the commission and NOAA Fisheries to use offshore energy developer funds for surveys and monitoring. That of course is contingent on funds being provided by developers. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to take any questions or additions. If there's any research for particular assessments or survey information that you all have thought we need more of, this is the time to suggest those.
Thank you, Pat. I'm going to look to questions for Pat, and I will also say that, you know, in dual role as chair of the MID, I do know that for the NTAP committee, we may be looking to change folks there, since the past MID chair may be a good candidate for us, as the commission's representative to NTAP has now moved to the council's representative for NTAP, that we need a new commission member. So any other questions for Pat? I see Jason's hand.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Back on the risk policy piece. So I saw, I flagged this part, Pat. Thanks for having the risk and uncertainty tool in there. And I agree with you. I think the hope had been to kind of, you know, have this sort of data rich version one further along and then start to think about it in the context of data poor species. But I think both are true. So I don't know if you want to either generalize this line or just add some text to kind of, you know, yeah, either way is fine. But just to capture that, we still need to work on the kind of more data rich version of it as well.
Okay, thanks for that suggestion. We'll just change that to have both.
Okay, John Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Pat. I'm just curious. I saw it just jogged my mind because I saw one of the things was being funded by Inflation Reduction Act funds, which I know are going away. Do you have any, with the changes we're seeing at the federal level, a lot of these are going to cost a lot of money, a lot of these action items. So I'm just wondering if you have any idea how much, if there's any way to rate these things as far as how sure you are of the funding continuing at the federal level at this point, or is that still to be determined?
Yeah, of course, a critical question, John. So thanks for that. I mean, in a couple of places we have added if resources are available, just in case they don't come through. But I might turn to Bob for any more elaboration, including the IRA funds.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Generally, John, the things that are in here, we anticipate being able to fund and support. You know, we kind of work as a 1-year lag sometimes on with our projects. So fiscal year 25 money, we just got that, I don't know, Laura, like a month ago or something. So, you know, we'll have that money for a year carrying forward essentially. And my understanding of the IRA projects is that if that money was obligated and the project has been initiated and approved, that money will continue to flow. So it's not going to be withdrawn on those projects. I think the IRA funds that were pulled back were projects were not for specific projects yet. They were just ideas that were out there that people had talked about, but nothing had started. No, those funds were pulled back. But these projects that are up and running, I think we're in good shape.
Emerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago about membership or representation on NTAP. And I just wanted to remind the commission that myself and Eric Reed are both also members of NTAP, as well as the NTAP working group that's developing the industry-based trial survey. Thank you.
No, thank you, Emerson. Yeah, good point. Adam Nowalski?
Thank you, and I'm glad that you highlighted your dual role as chairman of the council. I'm sure that helps facilitate the collaboration between the leadership between the two. So thanks for highlighting that. One of the other council business items is they're going to hold an upcoming indicators workshop this December, an IRA project regarding putting into use ecosystem and habitat indicators to support climate-ready fisheries management in the Mid-Atlantic. They identified council members, stakeholders, scientists, and staff to participate in that project. Has ASMFC been invited to that workshop as a member? And if so, would it be appropriate to be included here as well?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I think we'll follow up on that. It's a good suggestion. To my knowledge, we are not invited or haven't, appointed a representative, but we're aware of the project and have talked with the lead contractor who's developing the indicators. But we'll follow through to make sure we can participate.
But just real quick, Adam, we are on steering committees for, I think 4 projects that the councils, plural, New England, Mid and South Atlantic councils are, projects that have been funded through the IRA's money that is going through this council. So we are on the steering committee for a number of those projects. I just have to check in on this one and recall if we have a staffer on there or not. I don't think we do, but I can talk to the chair and when he has a minute, and see if we can get in there, because it does, based on your description, it makes sense that the commission will be represented.
Follow up, Adam.
Yeah, no, thank you. And again, I think similar to the earlier discussion about council items, whether a bullet point gets added regarding monitoring and or participation here, I think it's important that the entirety of the commission understands that we're tracking this, and the public does as well, should they look at this plan. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very fair. And it was, it was great to see some of those resources go to the councils. It was a little kind of, different that the commissions were handled so differently in that process, but that is what it is. I'll go to Tony. She has her hand up.
Adam, we do have a bullet to keep track of IRA projects and the cross-cutting issues. So I think it is there already, but we will, but as we said, we'll specifically reach out about this project.
All right, I think that wraps up the science bullet. And the other thing I should have said up front, I think, before we get into data management is that, you know, with the federal shutdown right now, there's a lot of things in here that assumes they're going to open up soon. We're going to be able to keep working. You know, and I don't mean this as a criticism of anybody from NOAA or Fish and Wildlife Service, but the reality, the last time we had an extended closure was that for every week of that closure, it pushed back projects about a month. So we had a 5-week closure. We had about a 5-month, you know, delay in some of the projects that we worked on cooperatively. So we're a month into this one now, and there's, as far as I can tell, no signs of things loosening up. But so, you know, we may experience some significant delays, such as the, you know, recalibration, do the FES work for MRIP program. That may be, I would think that likely would be delayed. So, you know, we have a lot of pieces hinging on different things with the federal government. We'll just, you know, adjust scheduling as necessary, but hopefully they get back to work and we can continue these projects. With that, I'll turn over goal number 3 to Jeff. That's statistics and the ACCSP program.
Thank you, Bob. Goal 3 is focused on fisheries dependent data through the Atlantic Coastal Cooperative Statistics Program. This year, we maintain the same kind of tasks and language under the continuing business and partnership sections, but under fisheries dependent data collection, the first major item is SAFIS, the Standard Atlantic Fisheries Information System. And one of our big projects this year is to develop the software for modernized and updated electronic dealer reporting. So the first bullet here is to facilitate the transition of dealers into that redesigned electronic dealer reporting software with specific focus on the file validation and transfer, the file upload dealers. We are going to be extending the one-stop reporting initiative in eTrips, the harvester application, to add state requirements and expand functionality across federal permits as those get implemented. We'll be soliciting dealer and harvester feedback on eTrips mobile and online applications, the look and feel, to scope enhancements to the user experience. So how does the software work? How can we make it more functional and easier for folks to use it? And we want to expand partner implementation of the eTrips one ticket functionality that's active in Georgia right now to allow a single submission from harvesters that act as their own dealers currently in a 2-ticket system. So we've heard from shellfish dealers and several states that want to move towards that functionality and again, ease the reporting burden on those entities and work with the partner agencies to do that. Under recreational surveys, we will continue to support MRIP endorsed recreational pilot projects. One of those is an APIS catch card pilot project that was supported at the Coordinating Council meeting yesterday, and to monitor and support South Atlantic exploration of state red snapper management. Under data distribution and use through the data warehouse and our data team, we will provide validated commercial landings data for commission stock assessments and the CDR processes. The list of species is in the document. We will incorporate additional partner data feeds to the biological data load schedule and finalize biological queries in the data warehouse to make those queries available to the public and to our confidential users. We'll be implementing charter boat at sea observer data warehousing for the South Atlantic. They're doing some field data collection now and want to have the centralized piece of that in terms of data storage within our systems. We'll be implementing consolidation, warehousing, and display of release catch data across the data types within ACCSP. Really, we store the mandatory report, the discard information, the release fish information under mandatory reports, citizen science, and observer data separately at the moment. So we need to make it easier to show what has been collected and share that back out instead of looking in 3 places. And we'll review the data warehouse user guide materials and identify necessary updates or additions to those materials or applications. And finally, under outreach and infrastructure, ACCSP will prioritize and implement improvements to our IT hosting scalability to address increased data demands within the scope of available funding. We'll increase outreach via industry publications on the value of safest applications, with specific emphasis on the one-stop reporting features. And we'll continue to improve the website through content expansion and usability enhancement to create a richer, more engaging website that is valuable to our users. We will discontinue antiquated software applications to increase the efficient use of ACCSB resources to maintain our vital functionality and meet future needs. And finally, we will document contingency plans for shifting funding availability by working with the coordinating council and the leadership team. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions for Jeff? John Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jeff. One of the points you made where you just mentioned citizen science just had me remembering, wasn't there a bill that passed a few years ago? Was it the Fish USA Act or something that said that we had to incorporate more citizen science type things into fisheries management? I was just curious, as I forget what the wording was exactly, but I'm just wondering where that is.
I have not been following that closely, but one of the ACCSB projects, the SciFish application, has a couple different pieces through South Atlantic Council that are running now, and we've got projects for Angler Catch, which is a different software application to feed their citizen science information into the ACCSB SciFish data warehousing storage. So there are pathways, and the SciFish advisory panel is considering applications to centralize and store more of that information and make that available to the stock assessment and management process as necessary.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions for Jeff? Not seeing anything. Bob, you want to keep this moving?
Keep going. Yeah, goal number 4 is the habitat activities. I think Tony and Pat are going to kind of tag team this, with Tony starting out and Pat wrapping it up. Is that right, Tony? As soon as Tony finds it, she'll be ready to go.
Thank you, Bob. All right, for the Habitat Committee, we will continue to publish habitat management series documents for the Atlantic coast, and will be presented a shell recycling programs and benefits to fish habitat in February, and then the committee will choose the next habitat management series document moving forward. And the committee will also update the state reports on ecosystem resiliency initiatives that are ongoing.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. The next section, leveraging partnerships, mostly pertains to the Atlantic Coastal Fish Habitat Partnership and a handful of new activities for 2026. First is to work with partners to develop standardized seagrass monitoring, assessment, and restoration for resource managers and habitat stakeholders up and down the coast. And then also on the funding front, protect, restore, and enhance fish habitats by supporting conservation projects, both through the NIFHAP National Partnership and through funding available through NOAA's recreational fisheries and habitat conservation offices. And so we've been very successful in funding over $100,000 of projects in recent years from those sources. And then finally, support ACFIP and its partners in fundraising efforts through a national 501c3 and some new staff that has been brought on board for development to bring more money to the fish habitat partnerships. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob and Tony. Any questions on this? Not seeing any. Okay.
All right, goal number 5 is law enforcement. I'll save Tony some breath here. There's essentially nothing new in the law enforcement activities for this year. It'll be their ongoing monitoring of fishery regulations and enforceability of FMPs, and they're commenting on proposed enforcement issues, as well as partnerships and some real-time tools to more effectively and efficiently, monitor fishery activity. So nothing new there, just sort of care and feeding and ongoing work of the habitat folk, of the law enforcement folks. So happy to answer any question, or if there's a specific project you think the law enforcement folks should focus on, we can add it here.
Questions or discussions on the LE portion of this? Not seeing it.
All right, goal 6 is outreach, which is Tina's wheelhouse.
Thank you, Bob. Goal 6 is about outreach and stakeholder support for the commissions. Under the first bullet on increasing public understanding and support of Bay SMFC, we plan to publish a revised guide to fishery science and stock assessments that's out on our display table that was published first in 2009 and could use a series update. So we're going to look at revising that and also putting that in a story map format. I'm going to look at some additional changes or explore changes to our ASMSC documents, including habitat outreach materials. We're going to continue to do our stock assessment overviews and focus next year on croaker and herring. We are also going to, later today, you're going to hear a lot about the single species and ERP assessments for Menhaden. And so we're going to focus some outreach on those 2 assessments throughout the year. We're going to explore opportunities to collaborate with the Association of Zoos and Aquarium to get more information out there on fisheries management, data collection, and fisheries science, and work with our sister commissions and councils and states as appropriate. Under maximizing use of current and new technologies, we're going to continue to seek improvements to our website in terms of functionality and accessibility to documents. We're going to look at trying to develop some videos on highlighting the importance of Atlantic coastal fisheries, the management process, the role of science, and the role of data collection in the assessment process. A number of our maps are fairly outdated or using antiquated programs, so we're going to update all our graphics, especially maps, on our website, and continue to streamline. We have a lot new signups through the website contact us page. We receive close to 10 to 15 a week. So we're going to try and automate that more so that it goes directly into our database if possible. Under facilitate stakeholder participation, we're going to continue to work on our action tracker web pages. We've got a lot of comments through those web pages, and I think it's certainly improved our public input on our proposed management actions. And as part of that, we'll continue to look at ways of streamlining the submission of public comment on management documents through customizable forms generated on the website, as well as evaluate our approach to populating advisory panels, similar in ways that we did to the horseshoe crab AP this morning, and look at both non-traditional and traditional stakeholders and solicit new membership as necessary. Under media relations and networking, we're going to continue to develop FAQs, commonly asked questions for high-profile species, with the intent to get at the misinformation that continues to be perpetuated throughout the media on our various management and science activities, as well as develop fact checkers to address misinformation in media. And only the last thing will be to bring together sort of the state and federal public information officers, I&E folks, either through an online or in-person workshop to discuss addressing information, engaging positive community engagement, and hosting successful virtual meetings. And that's all in addition to our standard activities that we carry out. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Yeah, and Alexander, in his most recent update, I believe, sent some of the infographics out to us, and so I hopefully everyone had a chance to see those. think they're fantastic personally. And so I'll just open up the floor. Any questions for Tina? Yeah. Okay. Wow. All right. Awesome. So I'm going to start with Adam, and then I believe Jeff and Lauren. So Adam, go ahead.
Thank you again. I appreciate your continued enthusiasm for recognizing me during this part of the meeting today. Under the bullet point of use new technologies to further improve website functionality and accessibility to management documents, is the commission required to adhere to the web content accessibility guidelines as a organization that is going to go into effect as of next April for some organizations and the following, which would require some reformatting of PDF documents, et cetera? Maybe that's completely new. Maybe I've gotten way too far in the weeds here with this one. But it is a pretty big deal in one of my other lives outside of here. Thought I'd bring it up here.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate that question. So far, as long as I understand it, we're not required to follow ADA compliance issues. However, if it comes to that, we'll make sure that we will do so.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. That's a great question. And even in the stock assessment process, we've seen that some of those requirements, can add additional, responsibilities and effort into how we present that information to the public. And so, an important question. I thank you for that. Jeff Kalen, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great work, Tina and staff on this. There's a lot of terrific initiatives here. I just wanted to make a comment up on page 14 relative to the collaboration with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Another aspect of that relationship could be learning from them about fisheries utilization. There's zoo food, there is a market for zoo food. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the species under management here, certainly the council, are utilized by that group for feeding their animals. And I think if we could get some information through that relationship about their utilization, not only fisheries management, but the utilization of fisheries stocks that are under management that they're using for food would be an interesting part of that collaboration, I think.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll include that in our discussions with them.
Thank you, Jeff. Other hands? Did I see Lauren? Go ahead, Lauren.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. And thank you to Tina for her report. I've been thinking about the number of nature centers and visitor centers that would be within 20 miles of the Atlantic coast, almost all of them being either public or not-for-profit facilities, and wondering if we could try to establish a really strong working relationship with them in terms of those centers providing our materials to the public. Thank you.
I think that's a great avenue, and we will explore that this year. Thanks, Lauren.
Appreciate that. Thank you. John Clark.
Thanks, Tina. Just want to say, as somebody of a certain age, that the change to the web page at first was a little frustrating at times, but now it's really, I've got the hang of it. It's really, really great. And just want to say that I really appreciate the news clippings you send out all the time, and I know I send it to all our staff too. They really appreciate those. Thanks.
Thanks very much, John. The other thing that I didn't put in the action plan, but I've discussed with some commissioners, is there's some commissioners who are still struggling with using the website to its fullest ability, and so we will conduct some informal webinars over the next few months to help bring people up to speed, and so they're more comfortable utilizing it. We also hope to launch a site-specific search engine, so that if you can't find it through the publication search, you'll find it through that.
All right, goal 7 is the lobbying and fiscal priorities for the commission, and Alexander is going to run through that goal.
Great, thank you, Bob. Goal 7 is advancing commission and member states' priorities through a proactive legislative policy agenda. This section is largely unchanged from last year. Many of our priorities are bipartisan or nonpartisan. A couple things have shifted with the change in administration and control of both houses. The most notable change is the removal of certain bills that were promoted under Democratic administrations, such as RISE, reinvesting in shoreline economies and ecosystems, which would have relied on offshore wind energy revenue, and the Recovering America Wildlife Act, RAWA. I don't see those two bills moving forward in this Congress. It may change after another election, but because of the new administration and hostility towards offshore wind development, while ASMFC has supported RISE in the past, that has been removed as a top-line priority. Should the prognosis on RISE or RAWA change, with RAWA, they need to identify a pay for, which they failed to do in multiple years, an appropriate pay for in multiple years. Should that change, we will retry with those efforts. A couple of references to energy initiatives and offshore wind development and fishery compensation mitigation efforts were removed from the document. The other notable change from last year is we believe that engagement with Congress and the executive branch is the best path forward for resolving our New Jersey Florida CARES Act issue. So Bob and I have been working hard on that. Those are the main highlights. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alexander. Questions for Alex? Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned this a little bit during our Horseshoe Crab board meeting, Alexander, but I really appreciate all the efforts that you and Bob have put forward. I think it's clear that even through, DC's challenges, we are still, seen, we are heard, we are relevant, and I think that's incredibly important. So I appreciate that. I'll look to Bob to move us forward again.
Just one quick note. Yes, as I said in my last legislative update at the last quarterly meeting, the Senate report language is very strong for us. So looking to maintain that is important. With staff turnover within each of these Hill offices, it's important to get commissioners up there as frequently as possible. I know I have some frequent flyers and would love to get some new faces up there, develop new relationships with offices that we don't see quite as much. So anytime anyone is willing to go up to the Hill with me, I welcome you to join me. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Alexander. And moving on to last but not least, goal 8, Laura.
Thanks, Bob. So goal 8 is ensuring the fiscal stability and efficient administration of the commission. Most tasks are ongoing. I think we put some new ones in under the first one, manage operation and budgets. We're going to continue to refine the process for developing and tracking subawards and contracts. The more money that we get, the more subcontracts, subawards we're giving out. So we just want to make sure that we've got a complete handle on those. We also plan to evaluate the commission infrastructure because this is year 15 being in our new office. So we want to see what we can do if we need to do anything, painting and things like that to the office. Then utilizing current information technology, which changes every day. So we're going to continue implementation and improvement of the commission's utilization of cloud resources. Hopefully that'll prevent another breach, but who knows? We're going to standardize the use of electronic forms to gather data across commission departments. We're going to refine email retention processes for staff that have left the commission so we have history of communication. And we're going to develop guidelines regarding access to former employees' electronic data for the same reason. We're also going to continue improving technological security using both hardware and software to ensure against potential future breaches. I'm about to run out of battery. Do you want to ask questions per that or just at the end?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we're going to, in the managing human resources, we're going to investigate additional options and resources to improve recruitment of administrative staff. We're going to research improvements to the human resources management system. We're going to conduct an all-staff team building retreat, which are really well received and really help build teamwork among our staff. And we're going to establish a virtual bulletin board to share staff information, calendar events, and resources, mainly because we're still a requirement of 1 day a week in the office. And so we need a better way to, we're like ships passing in the night. So we want to make sure that everybody has the same information. And under engaging and supporting commissioners, we are going to reinitiate the new commissioner orientation. So more details to come later. And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. And I think that's a lot, quite frankly. I really do. You know, we've been doing this a while, and I think, you know, for Laura's report there's a lot of new stuff in there that I think just really proves that we are staying focused and considering, you know, the needs of both the commission with discussions on how do we, you know, help new commissioners come into this process. Can't imagine just jumping into Menhaden or striped bass without, you know, any preparation. So, you know, but also, you know, some of the stuff on the other end of it, as you mentioned, Laura, like the data breaches and stuff like that. It's constantly evolving, and really appreciate that. So any questions for Laura? John Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Laura. I'm just curious, you mentioned that all staff have to be in the office 1 day a week. Is that correct? And just your opinion on how it's been working out in terms of retention, recruitment, and productivity.
I'll defer to Bob for that, if answering that question.
Yeah, thanks. So it has been working well. Most staff is in more than 1 day a week, and with our travel schedules and everything else, it's kind of hard to calibrate when people are in or out, and everybody's moving around. So I think, you know, it's been working well. I think the, you know, staff is staying connected. We try to bring in, you know, the groups together quite frequently within their departments and talk usually on a weekly basis. So I think overall it's working out pretty well. And I know that the, you know, recruiting and retention, you know, the you know, allowance for some remote work does seem to be attractive to a lot of people.
John, you good?
Yeah, thanks. I was just curious because we have like 3 days a week in the office. Just want to see how that was working.
Yeah. No, I will say I wasn't expecting the question, but I do want to say that when I took over as chair, I went to ASMFC and I talked to senior staff, and you know, I think, and I've said this on the mic before, I think that we have to move forward and learn lessons, right? You know, and including what happened during the pandemic. And this was one of the things I'm looking to Dr. Drew, because I feel like, you know, this was one of the things that I will, as long as I'm here, stand up for commission staff, that this is something that was really important, you know, and we don't live in that area. You know, we're here in beautiful Dewey Beach. It's a nice kind of calm commute if you're wandering around here, or where I live in South Jersey. That's not quite true for DC, you know. So I think it's been a really important thing to staff to have that ability. So I will say personally that, you know, it's something I will defend, that they have that ability.
Don't get me wrong, Joe. I just wanted to hear how I was working out.
I'm going to go to Eric Reed and then Adam Nowalski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your presentation. I just like to compliment you in recognizing in some of your new items that
not only do employees have rights, and our staff does a great job, and I would never, say anything bad about the staff, but you're also taking action to protect employers' rights. And I think that's really important. It's a different world now, and all the cyber, protect the corporation, not only from cyber attack, but you have rights, and recognizing the fact that employers and employees both have rights, I think is very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Adam?
So John brought up a word there that I think there's a lot in this section that relates to it, but I think the document would benefit from physical inclusion of the word retention in this section. You've got a paragraph that talks a lot about the process of recruitment and selection. Under managing human resources, you have a bullet point about investigating additional options and resources to improve recruitment. I think that retention element would be something. There's certainly elements here that allude to that, but listing it specifically, I think would be beneficial. And I can assure you that no member of your staff put me up to that for inclusion in the document here.
No, but it's a great point. So thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so there is at least one item. I'll go to Dan and then I'll make my stupid.
Thank you,
joke.
Joe. I missed this on the goal number 1. It had to do with black sea bass allocations for the next stanza, and I think that would begin in 2028. And I turned to Tony for those specific details, but I think that was an oversight that we meant to get into the document.
So it would be to at least have initiated a discussion by the management board to look at allocations, and the first year that allocation would be impacted if the board were to move forward with changes is 2028.
Okay, thanks, Dan. And any follow-up on that? I think that is an important addition. So, okay, not seeing any. So we're looking for, we're looking for a motion, and I don't want to influence anyone's, decisions here, but I would say we should probably consider, what counseling is for former chairs. Lots of hugs from Tina and Laura would be great. Not that has to go into the motion, but we are looking for a motion on the 2026 action plan. So look around. Joe Grist.
Move to approve the SMC 2026 action plan as modified today.
Okay, I see a second from Malcolm Rhodes. Anything to add, Joe, Malcolm? Not seeing any discussions on the motion? Not seeing any. Okay, great. It's a lot to do. I feel like no discussion on this does not mean that what happens in 2026 isn't incredibly important, or that there isn't a lot of work there. But I will consider that approved by consent, and thank you for that.
All right, here's everyone's favorite part. Who doesn't love a good old election? Everybody but Joe's favorite part. So Joe's starting a speech for his 3rd term. I don't know if that's allowed or not.
No, that's all. All I want is access to bother staff as much as possible with all my questions. That's all I need. I don't need to sit up here. Thank you.
Everyone has that access.
It's true. True.
So before we get into the election of the commission chair and vice chair, I just want to take a moment to present Joe as the outgoing chair with a commemorative clock to remember his time as commission chair. It's been, from the staff perspective, it's been wonderful working with Joe. And he mentioned it earlier, when he took over as chair, he came down to the commission and talked, spent a full day in the office talking to people and just getting to know staff and see what's working and, what they liked about the commission, what they think could be improved at the commission. And, I think it was really great to have that as a start to his chairmanship. And he's been in the chair through a lot of difficult issues, a lot of menhaden and striped bass and the lobster issue that got sideways on us and a number of other things. And I think he's, exhibited just amazing leadership to the commission and to staff and worked really well with Dan. Dan and Joe and I have standing 8:30 call every Monday morning, which is, well, yeah, when Spud was involved, and Spud started that, I think. And you know, those, I think, maybe therapy sessions or planning sessions, I'm not sure which, but you know, I think it's been a great 2 years working with Joe, and he's, you know, got kind of put in a bit of an awkward spot with the CARES situation, trying to be the chair of the commission and wrestle through that difficult issue. And I think he's done a great job of staying neutral and looking out for the commission throughout that process as well. So that's been great. And the other thing that Joe sort of took on very personally, I think, was this notion of misinformation that's out there, and you know, horseshoe crab and some of the other species, people are kind of twisting the story around sometimes, and Joe took that on and worked with Tina and others to really polish up some of the outreach materials and sort of, you know, do what he could to squelch some of the misinformation that's out there. And I think it was really impressive, and really appreciated that, you know, he was defending the process and trying to make sure that, you know, as much as possible in the internet age, that, you know, the information that's out there was reliable and you know, based on the science that the commission has. So with that, Joe, I just want, on behalf of all the commissioners and staff, thank you for the last 2 years. We really appreciate it. I think Joe just canceled all of us.
No, incredibly humbling. It's been an amazing experience, and I need to say thank you to everybody. Fisheries management is tough enough. We've had nothing but intense distractions in my 2 years, and I think it's remarkable how much staff has kept us on track despite all of the other things that we have dealt with. Somehow even Russia was involved. I mean, you don't expect that when you're running for chair, I'll tell you that. But yeah, no, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and it's been an amazing experience, and a little bit more tonight, unfortunately, because I have to give a speech too. So
yeah, don't use all your good material here. So with that brings us to the election of the new chair and new vice chair for the commission. And for that, I'm going to turn over the nominations to David Borden, who is the chair of the commission's nominating committee. David?
Yep. Thank you, Bob. So the nominating committee consisted of Spud Woodward and Roy Miller and myself. We solicited nominations over a period of about a month and a half from all of you. We had 4 individuals who were named: Dan McKernan, Doug Kameth, Chris Batsavage, and Marty Gary were all suggested for different leadership positions. And after consultation with the nominating committee, both Chris and Marty either decided to decline or withdraw from the nominating process. So in terms of today, we only have, I'll remove the only, we have 2 nominees, one for chair and the other one for vice chair. Our normal process, Bob can explain to you, is to do written ballots. Given the fact that these are the only 2 candidates that have been suggested, unless someone requests a written ballot, I would say we just do it by unanimous acclamation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, it's my honor and pleasure to nominate Dan McKernan as the next chair of the commission. So moved.
Excellent. Thank you. Since that's from the nominating committee, it does not need a second. The commission's election process does say that we'll pass around ballots and 1 vote per state, and they'll be signed by the state. But given the suggestion by the chair of the nominating committee, is there any need to do that? Does anyone, this may be awkward, but does anyone have the interest in submitting a written, write-in vote or changing it, or is there unanimous consent for approving Mr. McKernan as the commission's chair? Seeing no hands around the table, I take that as, there is no need for the balloting process, and we will. Dan is elected unanimously. Oh, Dan voted for himself, just for the record. So we'll get him a frame for that. And put it in his office.
I want to say, my bag is over there, but I have all the votes from my, in my bag. So, I mean, you're taking a.
I have this.
Okay. Any objection to electing Dan McKiernan as the chairman of the ASMFC? Seeing none, congratulations, Dan.
And continue, Mr. Chairman, the second nominee is for the vice chairman slot, and it's my honor to nominate Doug Hamus to be the vice chairman of the commission.
Thank you, David. And again, since it's from the nominating committee, it does not need a second. Does anyone want to go through the paper ballot process for vice chair? Seeing no requests for a ballot, is there any objection to electing Doug Hamus as a vice chair of ASMFC? Seeing no objections, congratulations, Doug, and I look forward to working with you. And that's it for the business session meeting, unless I see, oh, yes, David.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was one other item that the three of us basically carried on a discussion about the need to kind of revisit the process, the nomination process. I think there are elements of it that should be reconsidered relative to the need for a paper ballot and the circumstances for a paper ballot, whether or not the issue of the regional participation requirement and how that would apply under certain circumstances. So I guess the committee recommendation is the new leadership should reflect on that. Bob Beal is well versed on what our subcommittee concerns were, and then the new leadership basically decide whether or not you want to have another committee do it, or whether or not that same group can continue the discussions and kind of refine, clearly identify the problems and what some of the solutions might be. So that's just a recommendation. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you, David. And if Dan and Doug are comfortable with that, the three of us can discuss it and review the current process and see if any changes are need to be made, or if we want to set up a group to talk about it. Does that sound fair, Dan?
And I'd like to thank, I guess I'd call you guys elders, so much experience here at ASMFC, and you have a lot of wisdom and great guidance, and thank you for all of your efforts, and I look forward to working with you.
Great, thank you. So that concludes the business before the commission today, and we will recess the business session, or the commission will reconvene on Thursday afternoon for at least reading of the resolution. I don't think we'll have any other business, but this group will be a recess for a couple days.